Want me to share my screen with you? We did verb, we did verbs, we did regular, we did irregular. I talked a little bit about to conjugate, to have an infinitive agree with the subject pronouns. So when you conjugate a verb, you're taking an infinitive. Let me give you an example first in English, then I'll do it to you. Then I'll give you the example in Spanish. In English, you have the verb, by the way, I'm doing only regular verbs, because if you do irregular, it becomes too complicated. In English, you have the verb to talk. The verb to talk is a regular verb, number one. Okay, it's an action, it's to talk. It's a regular verb, and its infinitive in English is to. It's to plus the verb talk. Now, when you're going to conjugate the verb, the first thing you must do in English is remove that to. You're going to be working with the base or the simple form of the verb talk. That's what you're going to work with. Now we're going to put that verb with its subject pronouns and to see how it agrees. In English, it's very easy. It's I, you, we, they talk. So I talk to my mother, you talk to my mother, they talk to my mother, we talk to my mother, okay? But if you're going to do he, she, or it, you must add an S. He talks to his mother, she talks to her mother, and it talks to its mother, which is weird, okay? That's how you conjugate a verb in English. Whether, now you can conjugate a regular verb and an irregular verb, but an irregular verb falls outside of the rule, so you have to know how to conjugate it. You have to know. But in English, in the present indicative, to conjugate the present tense is I, you, we, they. The base form of the verb, or the simple form of the verb, he, she, it, the base or the simple form of the verb plus S. So once again, let me give you another example. I, you, we, they. The verb is to talk. You remove the to. I, you, we, they color. Color. I, you, we, they color. He, she, it colors. Now, it's not that simple in Spanish. Because in Spanish, a lot of times, the ending has a lot of information. So if you have a verb and its ending is AR, it is not conjugated the same way as if its ending were ER or if its ending were IR. Those are three, especially in the present indicative, those are three different conjugations. So I'm going to give you a verb, and the verb is hablar, H-A-B-L-A-R, or H-A-B grande, L-A-R. Okay, so you see the verb ends in AR, in H, in AR, H-A-B-L-A-R. So it ends in AR. To conjugate it like I did with to talk in English, the to is what you remove in English. In Spanish, you remove the AR. So now you're only working with the base of the simple form, H-A-B-L, H-A-B grande L. So now you're going to do the same thing, I, you, we, they, he, she, it, okay? But it's different. In Spanish, it's yo. Let me show you here. It's yo, tú, él, ella, usted, ellos, ellas, ustedes. Now, These are the singular. These are the plural. When to know whether a verb is I, it always ends in, this is for the AR verb, it ends in O. For the, for two, it ends, I'm talking about AR verbs now, AR, as, 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 él, ella, and instead, the verb ends in A. Ellos, ellas, ustedes, the verb ends in AN, A-N-A. I don't do the vosotros. So you remove the AR and you have hablo o, hablas as, habla a, habla a, habla a, hablan. You know what I forgot? I knew I forgot something. I kept looking at this and saying, I'm forgetting something. I forgot the nosotros. Nosotros, which is we. So it would be yo, tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros, N-A-O-S. A lot of times it's N-O-S period, right? So it's N-A-O-S-A. Nosotros hablamos. I knew I had forgotten one, but I just couldn't figure it out. Because I'm just making these cards now because I want to make it more, I want to make it clearer. So I just made this card to put up because originally I didn't have the subject pronouns. So that's why you don't see the nosotros. I kept saying there's something missing. Okay, so nosotros is, I'm gonna spell it out for you completely. First in Spanish, N-A-O-S-A-O-T-R-O-S-A. In English is N-O-S-T-R-O-S, nosotros. O-S, nosotros. Okay, and that's we. Usually it's, you can have it nosotras. Yeah, you can. If it's all female, then it's nosotras, which is we all female. And that's the ending is A-M-O-S. But for ellos, ellas, and ustedes, the ending is A-N-A, an, A-N. So I'm gonna do it. Hablo, hablas, habla, habla, habla. Try to imagine nosotros here, N-A-O-S-A punto, N-O-S period, or N-O-S-O-T-R-O-S, nosotros. Hablamos, H-A-B-L-A-M-O-S, H-A-B-L-A-M-O-S. Ellos hablan, ellas hablan, ustedes hablan. Now, most times in Spanish, maybe the exception would be usted and ellos, ellas, ustedes, right? You don't usually put the subject pronoun because the ending tells you. If it ends in O, it's yo. If it ends in two and it's us, it ends in, if it ends in us, A-S, it ends in S, it's two. If it's L, if it's ella, if it's usted, it ends in A, because I'm talking about AR verbs. If it ends in A-M-O-S, it's nosotros. If it ends in ellos, if it ends in N, A-N, it's either ellos, ellas, ustedes. Sometimes, so you can clarify if you're talking about, since they take the same endings, ellos, ellas, and ustedes, sometimes you put the subject pronoun. Sometimes with the same thing with el, ella, usted, if the context doesn't tell you. Also, a lot of times you put especially with the usted, because it's the formal, the polite, ¿cómo está usted? You're being extra polite. Like if I'm talking to someone and I use usted a lot in Spanish. I use it much more than two, especially when I'm talking to another grown person. Even though I've seen them and I see them around, I still use usted. You use the usted not just because the ending of el, ella, and usted is the same, but to show politeness. But almost never do you use the subject pronoun for yo y tú because they're so distinctive. The only time that you would use the subject pronoun for yo y tú, el, ella, usted, ellos, ellas, ustedes is when you want to emphasize the fact. It's like the difference between no subject pronoun, I speak Spanish. Subject pronoun, I do. You want to emphasize the fact that you do this. I do speak Spanish. Now, if the verb doesn't end in AR, but it ends in ER, as the verb comer, well, you do the same thing. You remove the ER, that's the two in English, and now you add the endings. The endings for the subject pronoun is O, es, a, amos, E-M-O-S, amos for nosotros, N. So you have the word como, comes, come, come, come. You try to imagine the nosotros here. Comemos, comen, comen, comen. One more ending, the IR ending, it's almost the same as the ER. The only difference is with the nosotros. That's what changes. So I had the verb, I'm gonna use the verb vivir, which means to live. Vivo, vives, vive, vive, vive. Imagine nosotros here, which is we, nosotros, N-O-S-O-T-R-O-S, nosotros, right? Okay. Now, instead of it being like the ER verb, comemos, is vivimos. It ends, it's the emos, not the amos. That's the only difference. Then viven, viven, viven. That's how you conjugate. That's how you conjugate verbs in Spanish. You remove the AR, ER, IR. Then you put its endings. O, as, a, amos, an. O, es, amos, and. O, es, emos, and. That is only for the present indicative. Each tense has its own endings. So you have to memorize endings in Spanish, where you don't have to do that in English. Some, you memorize an S. You memorize an ED. You memorize an ING. It's not as detailed, it's not as complicated. Remember, the pronunciation in Spanish is not complicated, where in English it is. So now this is a little bit more complicated, but you get used to it. I remember thinking, how am I going to get used to remember if it's yo and it's the ace and the us and the nosotros and all that? You get used to it, just like anything, you get used to it. It becomes second nature to you. It is almost natural now for me. It becomes second nature. Just like for a baby in the beginning, they don't know how to say this or that and the other. And eventually they get used to it if it's their native language and they're only learning one language. And if not, if they're learning 2 or 3 languages at the same time, they learn how to distinguish between, their baby talk and, well, they stop with the baby talk after a while. They learn how to, their brain puts in compartments. You'd be amazed. And a child speaks English and Spanish and French and Mandarin and Turkish and Portuguese. A child can learn how to speak multiple languages and find it as the most natural thing. And if they learn it early enough, they'll learn the accent. That's what I should have learned, was the accent instead of my American accent. We all have accents. So that is looking at the two cards to conjugate a verb, and then I showed you how to conjugate. And once again, please excuse me. I forgot to put the nosotros, and I kept saying, I'm missing something, I'm missing something. What am I missing? And what I was missing was nosotros, N-O-S-A-O-T-R-O-S, nosotros, N-O-S, see, I'm used to spelling it in Spanish, so when I have to spell it in English, I have to think about it. N-O-S-O-T-R-R-O-S, I think that's nosotros, right? Nosotros, and that's the we. And that can either be masculine or feminine. Okay, thank you. We'll continue. You can see I have a number of cards here. They're colorful cards. And we'll continue looking, we're defining terms here. We'll continue defining terms before I get into the actual detail of verb tenses and verb moods and all the other stuff before I get into the actual detail, how you do it in Spanish. So this is Coralla Ficklin McLean. And Ficklin is spelled F as in food, I-C-K-L-I-N. Coralla is spelled C-A. It's really Coralla, but I don't do that, especially in the United States. I'm not gonna go Coralla. But it's C-A-R-R-A-L-A, C-I-R-A-L-A, Ficklin. And McLean, just how you spell it, just like you think. Well, it's M-C-C-L-A-I-N. Thank you for coming to my website. Thank you for coming to my channel. If you feel that this is any way help you, I would appreciate if you would subscribe. Thank you. So I'm going to stop sharing. And then the next video, I continue. Bye now. Stop sharing and bye.